feeling a little overwhelmed and stressed out about what's happening in the real estate business, maybe even a little burnt out. If so, you are certainly not alone. On this episode, I sit down with Heather Domi, who has 23 years of real estate experience and closed 140 million in transactions last year. What I really enjoyed about this conversation is she took her business completely apart and built it from ground zero to what it is today. It's just such an authentic and genuine conversation. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did recording it with her. As always, I'm your referral partner out of San Francisco, Shawn Kunkler. Thanks for joining me today. I am, beyond honored that you carved out time. Obviously, you're super busy. You literally just changed office today and you're reconfiguring your team. And with 23 years in the business, obviously you're super busy. So I genuinely appreciate you being here. So thank you. I'm going to kick this off a little bit different because you have so much interesting depth. If you could, in a couple sentences, share with the audience, who are you and what do you do?
Yes, certainly. So, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I was very honored to get the request to come on your show. Everybody's spoken so highly about the experience, so I'm really grateful to be here. If I had to summarize just kind of who I am, where I am, um, you know, I've been in the industry for 23 years, as you've said, and I have been through so many different markets and so many different genesises of life in this career, whether it's been working in new development specifically, then going into resales, which a lot of people will say general real estate, then doing both at the same time, having a business partner, not having a business partner. So I feel that kind of I'm the accumulation of my experiences, and it's really brought me to a place where I feel a very broad depth in understanding of the markets, the way that the industry ebbs and flows, not getting off kilter when we have kind of highs and lows in the market, just always understanding that in every market, there's always an opportunity. So as far as like the business side of me, I think that I'm at a place where I would say I'm settled, at least with where I feel I am in my career and in the industry. I don't get rattled. I'm not rattled by, the upcoming changes of the decoupling of the commissions. I've been able to do a good job of also being able to have a life outside of the business and being able to, kind of shut things down when I need to and be present with my family. And so, you are a sum of your parts, and real estate is a big part of me, but my family is probably the most important part.
Real estate's a vehicle for me to have the opportunity to do amazing things with my family. So I'm on the same page. I feel like you have such an unfair advantage over a lot of agents by having 23 years of, you kind of see the road ahead well before a lot of people, because you've already experienced it. 23 years is a very significant amount of time to be doing it. And so, I mean, you've seen, you said ebbs and flows, but it's like, if you watch stocks, it's like you've seen the high markets, you've seen the crashes, you've lived through them, you've successfully obviously gotten through all of them. And I'm in awe of that component alone, because we're definitely going through, we went through COVID, which was nuts onto itself. Now we're seeing the decoupling of the commissions happening, where we went from virtually a 0% rate to the highest increase in the shortest amount of time. I feel like when you consult with clients, you can give such an experienced perspective on it, but in a way that just calms their nerves. as well as your team of like, I've seen this before. It'll be okay. We're going to survive.
Right. And, I think that, I think you're right about that aspect, especially calming clients' nerves, right? Because I think right now there's nothing more nerve wracking for a buyer who wants to buy and the interest rates are so high. So it's very expensive to just get into the market, but they have reasons that they want to buy and they know that it is still a good idea to buy, but being able to kind of calm those nerves and walk them through that process. And then, hey, well, we don't have the kind of inventory that we really should have in order for prices to come down with the raising the interest rates. So how do we address that? And how are we addressing, the fact that sellers haven't really woken up yet to where pricing needs to be and they're still trying to push the limits. So it is a constant dance is what I would say. And, only through education and, I do coach with Steve Scholl. So he would say tactical empathy. It's not fact, logic, or reason. But, honestly, like just giving your client a roadmap of where things were, where they are, and where, if it's a specific property and you're talking about comps, where that property lines up within that roadmap, so that they can kind of see, because it's like, and you've got the issue right now too, where buyers just think things should be so much lower than where they are. So, we have to move the market. And what is it that's going to help both sides to understand where we're going to be able to meet in the middle so that we are able to get this market moving?
I really love one thing that you said in there, and I hope people didn't glaze over it, but it's super important that you mentioned working with Steve Scholl, who's a coach, and you're 23 years in the business and you still have a coach. And I love that mindset that we don't know everything about everything. And sometimes having that person over your shoulder to call you out on things or to point you in the right direction, it's so important for our growing success. And, to mention success, you had 140 million in transactions last year. You are, by definition of real estate, highly successful in 23 years in the business and obviously a vast amount of experience, and you have a coach. And so I think that's a really important thing that I hope people didn't glaze over of the importance of having that as a component.
I have to be transparent and say that I've only had a real legitimate coach for 1 year out of all these last 23 years. I started coaching with Steve in the last year, and, good, bad, or indifferent. There were, I think I maybe did just a little bit of coaching here and there. But I've always been extremely resourceful. And I've been a hard worker, and I would just always put my head down and just work hard and kind of grind through, and it served me well, to a point. And, sometimes when, I guess, probably if you look at like, what was the impetus is after all this time, why did I finally decide that I wanted to do coaching? And I was looking at my business and I'm like, yes, I'm very fortunate and I've had a great career and a lot of success, but I feel like if I would work just maybe a little bit smarter, that success and it could be next level. And I see the people that are, achieving that next level success. And so I say, well, why not me? I know I have it in me to do it. What's blocking me from doing it? And, that was an answer I couldn't answer. So that was one of the largest reasons why I started the coaching was I wanted to figure out what it is. Like I figured things out so far and I figured it out pretty well, but obviously I haven't fully unlocked what the potential is.
When things are going really well, we tend to party. And when things go really bad, we tend to ponder. Did you have, for that initial thought of maybe coaching is something I should explore, were you having kind of a difficult I mean, 2 years ago or a year ago was still post COVID. It was our business changed significantly as the rates changed significantly. Was it all of those components that were kind of making you look inside of what should I do different?
I ended up going from my worst year ever in 23 years, which was COVID. We weren't in New York City, or well, actually in the state of New York, we were not deemed essential. So we were not allowed to work for almost 6 months. The only work we could do was literally the work from our home. And so that proved to be the worst year of my career, numbers wise. And then I went to my best year of my career the next year. So I think that kind of struck a nerve with me as to, why, obviously, I mean, there were reasons why COVID and we had the market wasn't great before COVID in New York City. Things were going down starting 2018, 2019. So it was kind of like a hangover from all of that. So why did it go from, such a large pendulum swing? I think was my biggest curiosity, and not wanting that to happen again. So that I knew I was setting myself up for success so that I could just have consistency, I think there was a little bit of burnout, definitely within that. And I think COVID was harder for some people than it was for others. It was, I think my father died that year, not from COVID, but he did die that year. So it wasn't a great year overall. And, I think from day one, the way all of my moves in the business, after I got out of when I started looking at new development, because my first 8 careers was exclusively new development, working for one developer, selling one project at a time, basically. And 2008, 2009 happened, and the developer, I was realizing, I'm like, wait a second, like all my eggs are in one basket. If he doesn't want to spend marketing money, I have no control over that. If he doesn't want to negotiate, I have no control over that. So what is it that I can do to make myself recession proof in a way, right? Like, how do I build a business that can stand the test of time through the highs and the lows? And that's always been what has precipitated my moves after that throughout my career. So I would say that was why I started the coaching.
It's such a great question, is how do you make your business recession proof? And to your point, I think we've all done it, is you tend to have a lot of success in one category. So you put eventually all of your eggs tend to go into that one basket, and then it becomes a very fragile basket because it's very heavy. And one little shift of any significance and you now have no basket, or a quickly shrinking basket. Which it's similar as you. I had in San Francisco, real estate was deemed not essential, and it gridlocked everything. And I just literally watched every flower and leaf on the tree just wither and die. And it was such a challenging, painful experience, followed by, to your point, the 100-mile-an-hour business. Just, it was insane from doing nothing to doing way too much. And I definitely feel like I caught the tail end of I was totally fried, multiple points of just being run ragged and knowing like this is not sustainable in either category. It's so unhealthy. There's so much happening, and I just need to not feel like a ping pong ricocheting around in all these different directions. So and I don't mean to make this a sales pitch about coaching, I'm just really curious about your experience, but how, since coaching how have you noticed that your business has normalized or stabilized, or even in your personal life? Do you feel less burnout? Do you feel like you've brought back some enthusiasm?
Yeah, definitely. So I remember Um, it was after 2009 and it was kind of my first 18 months in the business. And, it was really a tough time to get in the business. I mean, not many people were getting into real estate in 2009, and not having like a paycheck. So, it was, I was really determined back then. I was going to make it happen. And, I've got that sense of determination back. When cause you and I talked, but I had a business partner for 11 years, and we dissolved that partnership in January, the end of January. And, when I looked at that business, there just were some aspects of the business that I felt, that we failed at, and I take as much in that part of that failure. And that was really in the level of supporting my team members, and helping them grow and have successful, thriving businesses. And, I really want to change that. And that's been one of my biggest focus is working with, I have a operations manager and I have 2 sub agents with a third starting on Monday. And, I want to help them be able to unlock that key to find their success, because, so many people have teams, and you hear again and again, nobody on my team produces. And I just don't see the point in having the team if the team isn't going to produce. And how is that fulfilling? It can't be fulfilling for anybody. Right. So, I want to work with my team and have us all succeed together. I include my team, twice a month on coaching calls. They've gone through the Steve's, CRM boot camp with me. We've worked on our processes and we're heavily integrated into the Compass platform. And so now I'm defining, what is it going to take for them to succeed? What are the things that they need to do that, are going to help them get, to making a decent living, and how do I support them in getting to those places? So that's been my focus, and that's where kind of my vigor comes in that I feel inspired. I feel accountable. I don't feel that, the coaching has brought me to a place of accountability, not only with myself, but, of course, like I don't want to, be sitting on a coaching call and say, oh, well, I haven't done anything you told me to do. And then, I realize I'm wasting everybody's time if I'm like not listening and not taking action on so many things that are actually not that difficult to take action on. And then if I want to be a mentor and a leader, I can't expect anything out of anyone on my team that I'm not doing myself. So that's where I am. That's my approach. It feels new. It feels exciting. It feels like we're in it together. It's just created a whole new drive and passion.
You remind me as you're sharing that that quote of leaders go first. And it's to your point. It's like, if you're out there doing it, you can actually empathize because you understand the experience, but you can then guide them because, as we talked about earlier, the road ahead. And, it's interesting as well, the perspective of relationships are a place to go and give, not a place to go and get. And I talked to recently Brandon Knox out of Tennessee and actually David Schlichter out of Denver. Both of them, similar to you, have small teams, but mighty. They're like each person is putting up huge numbers. And it's funny, but similar to you, both of them, in describing their team, all three of you talk about how do you lift up your team? How do you promote them? How do you help them? What do they need? Out of the three of you, no one said, this is what I do. I need this. They do this for me. It's always the focus is actually on them and how do you elevate and support and get them to their goals, which ultimately gets you to your goals. And it's such a refreshing way to look at all of this, especially in a business where egos can get pretty big pretty quick. Of shifting that perspective and being of a nurturing leader and pulling everybody up. And I'm of the same camp. I would much rather have a couple people on the team who are just incredibly hardworking, on the same page, and fulfilling and meeting all of their dreams, rather than having a bloated team that's doing 100 million, but everybody's closing 2 million. And you're like, no one is actually successful except for one person at the very top. And that's, to me, it's fine if that's the route somebody wants to go. But to me, that model just doesn't resonate with, it just doesn't resonate. To me, in my opinion, it just doesn't feel good. I feel like being the leader who's uplifting everybody around them, but in a very small, concentrated, meaningful way, far more important.
Succeeding alone is you're alone, right? But succeeding together is just a lot more fun. And to be able to have the wins together and take on the challenges together is a much more meaningful experience. And, a lot of people collect people, to have a big team and stuff, or they have the people around so that they can go on vacation when they want, and they can, kind of do their thing and do what they want, and they've got the coverage. And that's like such a small piece of it, and should be such a small piece of it, is like making sure you have enough people so you have the coverage so you can live your life, because that's the reason why people make teams. But if you're going to have a highly functioning team, and a team of people that I think are going to stick together and stay committed to one another, I think everybody has to win in it.
I completely agree. I mean, if you're not growing and thriving and enjoying what you're doing, they're not going to stick around. Like, anybody who's not being able to contribute and share their ideas and actually grow within it, you're going to have you'll inevitably have a revolving door because of it. Especially if they're a high performing agent, they really want to get in there, roll up their sleeves, and go. They want to get after it. It's our DNA. I mean, that's what makes us successful. Like, that's, if you just kind of step back and you look at all the high performers, they just go, like, they run full speed at things. And if they're not able to, they'll do it with somebody else or on their own, or however they decide to configure it. So how has it been breaking off? And it sounds like you have a new stride in your step and a new thriving team. Do you feel, I don't know how I should ask this, but I guess, do you feel clear with your goals and the forward momentum that you have?
I actually do. So we all sat down and did Gordon Golub's business planning session for 2024. And there was, write down your 10 things that you want to accomplish in 2024. And I had 11, and I wrote them down in 1 minute. So it was nice, because it was nice to write them down, but it's kind of like everything that I've had like churning in my head, and all the little different levels and layers that I've been trying to fire on. So it's been exciting in that sense, that I do have, I tend to kind of categorize everything. It's like I have a filing cabinet in my head. And I categorize everything up there. Sometimes it's hard to like put it down on paper, but, it was really helpful. And, I feel that I am systematically going after each of the things that are on that list. And I've, kind of have a plan for everything. So, it's good. And it's, listen, it takes much longer to get through things than you ever think, right? You can't just power through and get stuff. So it's always kind of a work in progress. And as much as I want to say, okay, I want to be done with this, and like just be able to focus on sales, for instance. It's like you're never done. You're never done with any of all of that. Like there's so many layers. If you're going to do this business right, there's so many different layers that you need to tend to, between the marketing, the social media, the client, connections and in-persons and all that stuff. So you're never done. And it's just it's a constant.
It's funny. It's true. I mean, your plate is never empty. So that means your plate is actually always full, but you just have to chip away incrementally in all of these categories. But I do find with myself and my team is when you put pen to paper, there's a power to it. And especially when you're in a group, a safe group where you're sharing and they're sharing and everybody's supporting each other in that same direction. There's a weird level of similar to what you were talking about with being in Steve's sessions is there's a pressure where you don't want to be the one who didn't do it. And so you are inclined, you have an internal motivation pushing you to get that work done, which then it pressures everybody else to also work for the goals. But I think when you write it down, you filter and you really clean up and you get very specific as to what it is that you're actually working for. And I also think it helps with the team. Like the team should know, why are we here? What are we actually, what's the point of this? Why are we doing this project? And what's the potential outcome from it? And it helps when everybody's on board. It's much easier when some of the team's pulling and some of them are pushing, and we're all moving this one thing forward to the finish line. It really does help. It creates a momentum.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, I'm excited to, kind of take that one step further with everybody. Because that was like a 1 hour session. So we've got a little more work to do, but it is definitely helpful getting it down and having everybody do it at the same time. Because everybody on your team should have their own business plan, right? Like you're not the only one that should have plans. Everybody should have plans and goals.
The way we do it, it's a little bit different, but each person has their individual business plan, and we always do a 1 page. So that forces everybody to be really concise. Like you can't be too whimsical. You have to really refine things. And then we take all of the individual goals and then we put them into the team goal. And so then all of the components fit into the bigger picture. So it's more of a puzzle. And so I find there's an ownness where that team member knows that them succeeding in their stuff helps the team succeed in theirs. And so there's a level of camaraderie. And I actually I'm genuinely inspired from David, who I mentioned earlier, out of Colorado. One of the things that he does to inspire his team is he essentially has a point system, and doing the different activities to gain their success, they are getting points. So if they're following up, they get points. If they come to meetings, they get points. If they're doing their key activities, and then those points go towards a profit sharing. So a portion of all the sales goes into a bucket, and then depending on your efforts, you get a portion of that. So you have potential for more income from the team. And I really thought that was such a unique, I've actually haven't heard of it described in that way. And I found it to be such an inspiring aspect to kind of get everybody on the same page and work towards something.
Right. That sounds amazing. That sounds really incredible.
Really interesting, that approach. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're working for the most part with realtors specifically. They're contractors. And so you can't tell them what to do, but we can inspire them. And he found a really cool way to do that. So shout out to David for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, that's the one thing, like, I have this list of recommendations of things that, you can't say these are requirements. If you're going to be on my team, you need to do these things. You can't say that because we're all independent contractors. But, you can try and guide them towards a path that is really going to be focused on their career development. And so that's my goal, is that this is more for your career development than anything. And then you're accountable and I'm accountable, because, if I'm asking you to do it, this is what I'm doing as well. So, but that'd be so interesting to hear about that point system.
Yeah. The other one that he shared that I thought was really interesting was, I don't know the exact percentages, but an agent, for example, on the team will get a decent percent for facilitating a transaction, but they basically get the equal percent for getting a 5-star review. And so there's a huge emphasis on doing the job amazingly, like do the best job that you can. And I think it's really brilliant. And as we talked about earlier, he puts the spotlight is on the agent, and really like, how can I encourage, help, develop, and grow them, and not how do I take a bigger cut and build my empire.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Well, I know you're juggling a lot because we actually met on social media first. And so I know you have that whole leg going. What are the bigger projects, I should say, that you have, that you're either working on or starting in 2024?
I mean, listen, 2024 is everything that Robert's been preaching when it's to like the in-persons, being in front of your clients and connecting with your clients, and, just building those relationships. Because I think it's important, and my husband, he'll say, if I say, oh, I have something and it's networking or whatever, he'll always yell at me. He's like, it's not networking, it's relationships. These are relationships. And I'm like, you're so right. And so, I really want to like just foster and build those relationships, because I think that's one area where I was the common casebook realtor, where I would, you get busy, you'd be on to the next deal, and you lose communication with people. And so, that's I'd say number one. And then as far as my social media, I'm trying very hard to push myself out of my comfort zone. I've been working on video content and doing some neighborhood series. So I started, listen, New York has so many vibrant neighborhoods, and every neighborhood is so different. They've got their own characteristics, something to offer. Everybody's, has different feelings towards different neighborhoods that resonate with them. So I've been trying to focus on, these kind of key neighborhoods in New York where I sell, and give some insights to what those neighborhoods are like, via video, like short content video on social media. So I'm, just finished my third, which was Soho, started with the Upper East and then Tribeca. So I've got a few more to go. So I'm working on that. And then some thought leadership. I, started an organization with, several of my peers here in the city, that is, it's a cross company line. So it's got, I think we have probably 20 different brokerages represented in the organization. And the organization, it's for agents by agents. And I'd say we're a group of civically minded people. And, we've gotten involved in some of the local and state politics and some of the issues, because that's another thing that's been hitting us a lot lately, is like, honestly, if it's not the economy and the markets and tax changes and, it's politics for us, because it's a big thing in New York. So really focusing kind of on my thought leadership because I'm one of the co-founders of the organization, and I chair the organization. And so I need to put myself out there more in kind of leading the, kind of leading where we go, in that sense, because I have been involved in a lot of the different issues politically. I was actually one of the very first agents on the real estate board of New York, on their board of directors. Up until a few years ago, there was not a single agent on our board of directors for a realtor. What you guys would, because we're not realtors actually in New York. We're not part of the National Association of Realtors. We have kind of this independent organization, but on that board of directors, there was no agents that sat on that board, and the rest. We could talk for 3 hours about this. So, across the country, so we did like a survey across the country, and in all the major markets and all the realtor associations, we're not talking about MLSs, are about 50-50 split between agents and owner operators. And ours is all owner operators.
Huh.
So yeah, it's interesting. And they're the ones that are making the decisions for the way things operate. So we were able to get 2 agent seats on that board through some meetings and, just really presenting these facts, but we still have a long ways to go. They're not voting seats. They're more in an auditory capacity. And, I did it for 3 years. I did it for like 3.5 years. It was just hard to run NIRAC and be on that board and run a business. So, I have a lot of opinions when it comes to all of the way that the brokerage business is run in New York. And I just would like to see agents have more of a voice. And so I want to continue to pursue that.
I admire that. I mean, I think even as we discussed with the whole commissions issue happening right now, I think there's going to be a major shift. And I also feel that agents, because we are independent businesses, we need a different voice. And I think things are going to rattle around and change and move. But I do find it on a national level, it's so incredibly bizarre. Even if you just take California, for example, and you break it down, one town over, they're doing things completely different. And so there's zero rhyme or reason, though my license is good throughout California. It's a very strange industry that I feel like it's obviously a very old industry, and it hasn't been taken apart and evaluated and put back together. It's just a bunch of Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids, and nothing's really cohesive, sadly. Though I do like what some brokerages are actually attempting to do, and to try to create platforms that are, especially from a client perspective, it's a more seamless experience if they're relocating and moving from state to state. It's needed.
It is. I mean, it's interesting, right? Any other industry has a union, and not that there are a lot of things about unions that aren't great, right? But at least there's some level of kind of cohesiveness and organization. And there's somebody that's out there that can speak for the group that's disadvantaged. So, we are all the independent contractors, and we're small business owners, and we are the smaller voice with the less deep pockets. And yet there is no one unifying voice to kind of represent us. And so, I'm not at all saying a union is an answer. I'm just saying it's the one industry where that whole concept never swept in and took care of that. I use a lot the kind of the difference between the professional athletes, in which they have, if you played for baseball, you've got Major League Baseball as the top organization. Then you have all the teams and the independent team owners, and then you have the Players Association. And the Players Association is able to protect those players because they've got collective bargaining agreements and they go back, and everybody's got a different agenda. You team owners have agendas for, making sure they're meeting their numbers. The league has, it has to protect the league. You've got profit sharing across the leagues, in most cases. So there's a lot of different dynamics going on, and we have a lot of the same similar, right? Like, we've got all the independent the major brokerages, and then we're all underneath the brokerages. And then you've got, the National Association of Realtors that kind of helps try and guide that ship up there. But it's not as cohesive as most other industries.
You make a great point. You're right. I haven't reflected on it on that level, but we are lacking a cohesiveness. From being in it and observing it, it's very clear. It's plain as day that everybody's kind of running around doing their own thing a lot. And it's not always awesome.
Not always awesome. And I think listen, if you had that kind of unifying voice for just the agents and the independent contractors, could that start to create and change the lens of the perception of the profession?
My honest opinion is I think the bar of entry to get into the business, the industry, is a little too easy, is my 2 cents. Considering that we're dealing with, in most cases, in people's number one investment in their life, I feel like there should be a little bit more of a filter before people get in. But that's my take on the business. But I do appreciate you even getting into the political side, because especially in San Francisco, and being such a blue city, we're clearly hated by all the red media outlets right now, and just getting smashed out there left and right, which really puts a huge tarnish on things. And we know that not everything is the way that it's perceived in the media, and it's definitely changed the landscape of our businesses in the city and most major cities. All the major cities get a spotlight from time to time, especially on the upcoming election years.
Yeah, we all have similar the blue states with the big blue cities. We kind of all have some of these similar challenges, and it's interesting. Don't get Leonard started on it.
I think don't get any of us, because we're also strongly opinionated on it, especially, because it really directly impacts our clients is the bottom line. And it's sometimes it's not fair. And I genuinely wish things were a little bit different than they were. But it's interesting. I feel, thankfully, to your point earlier, things ebb and flow, and we're in a tricky cycle right now because the mortgage rates were super incredibly low, and everybody is now parking because it doesn't make sense to upgrade your house and upgrade the amount of money you're going to pay to borrow the money. And so we're in this interesting gridlock, though at the time of this recording, it seems like the rates are normalizing and coming down a shade. So hopefully that is a trend that we continue to see.
So yeah. So my take is, everybody's saying, oh, second quarter, that's what the news this week, right? The news this week was that second quarter rates are going to start to come down. Things are going to get better. If you look at this, if you kind of zoom out, that's when the election's going to start to kick up. And then that's when they're going to need the interest rates to be lower.
Oh, 100%. It's always about making yourself look awesome right at the finish line.
Exactly. So, have no fear. There's hope for 2024.
And regardless, the markets, I don't care what snapshot of time, they never stay the way they are. It's an evolving process. They're up, they're down, and they're constantly moving. But if you look at New York City, LA, San Francisco, Miami, these are brand name cities, brand name. And the people growing up right now, some people just yearn to live in a city. Some people yearn to live in the suburbs. And eventually, when they're old enough, they're going to move to these cities, and the cities are going to keep going. That's the nature of how the cities work. And so I'm confident on, if you just draw out the timeline a little bit, all of this will be in the past. And we saw how quickly it radically changed during COVID. The market stopped 1 minute and just was flowing the next. And that's just a really small case study of how quickly these things do change and evolve. And everybody will be back in. But not for nothing. Prior to that, we had a handful of years of exceptional growth for an incredibly long duration of time. And that wasn't sustainable either. And so we're just in a normalization process.
Right. Definitely.
Heather, it's been an absolute pleasure. The time on this one has flown by, which I always find is a good indicator of a fun conversation. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. It's been an honor to be here. And I feel like we could probably talk for a whole nother hour.
We could. I feel like we just got started.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.